Before you watch this video, hopefully you've seen my other two videos on the subject of the difficulty in Sekiro. And this all started because I decided to do a no prosthetics run of Sekiro. I did that again. I did it for two reasons. One is to collect all the upgrade materials and not use them. Because if you consume them to create the prosthetic tool, you miss out on, well, you don't miss out on, but you lose a lore page. You lose an item description because it's consumed. It's gone forever. You can't get that back. Not even in New Game Plus. And I wanted to have a save file that had all those item descriptions in one place. Two, I wanted to do this challenge run because it requires that you learn all of the bosses well enough that you beat them using only your sword and not the prosthetic tools. And this is during the release of Sekiro, when everybody's putting out these videos on how to cheese these bosses, and most of them are just like, you know, spam them with firecrackers or use double Ichimonji over and over again. By the way, double Ichimonji, completely overrated. Senpo kicks or High Monk Master Race for life. Going back to the topic of the challenge itself, I knew this wouldn't be a very difficult challenge. This would not be a very hard challenge. And the reason I knew it would be easy is because the game lets you run out of spirit emblems. And spirit emblems are basically the ammunition required to use your prosthetic tools. So if the game will let you run out of the ammunition to use them, then those tools will never be required to beat anything in the game. If you can run out of it, then obviously you don't have to have it. So that's a design decision. It's a design philosophy. It's one of the many that you'll find if you take the time playing these games. If you take the time to sort of understand, why is the developer doing this to me? Which I'm sure is a question a lot of people have asked From Software quietly in muttered breaths as they hang their heads in defeat. I'm sure many of us have asked, why is From Software doing this to me? The point I wanted to make with this video series is that this game, though, it's really not that difficult. And if you want an easy mode, guess what? You're playing it. That's the regular New Game mode. That's as easy as it gets. I guess you could argue New Game Plus is maybe easier because you start off with all of your flasks and you start off with all of your skills and your tools and all that stuff. So New Game Plus might be easier unless you give Kuro his charm back, in which case you take chip damage. But this is all difficulty by design, and that's been the whole premise of this video series and the whole premise of this challenge run is difficulty as a design decision. Now, the game's never going to make me use a prosthetic tool to beat a boss, and I know that because they're going to let me run out of ammunition to use the tools. So it can be very simple to beat these bosses without using any of those tools. Even, you know, you can spam the firecrackers. I'm sure you've seen speedrunners and stuff like that use the firecrackers to just cheese the shit out of the monk. But it's not necessary. You don't have to do that. And it doesn't require any sort of like superhuman dexterity in order to control your character here. One of the things that I see a lot of people talk about is that you can just waggle L1. If you've ever played New Game Plus and given Kuro his charm back, you'll know that waggling L1 is a terrible idea. The first boss that you saw me fight in this video, Orin, she will destroy you if you just try and waggle L1 at her. I found that waggling R1 is a much better idea. A lot of times what throws me off in this game is slow attacks. And when I see a slow attack coming, I'll press L1, and then the attack hasn't landed yet. So I'm kind of stuck in this limbo, where, what do I do? Well, you can just mash L1 and hope for the best, but if you're taking chip damage, it doesn't work out so well. So what I started doing instead is mashing R1. I would press L1, and if my parry was too early, then I would press R1, hit the enemy, and then press L1 again. And most of the time, you have that window of opportunity to fix your failed deflection, replace it with an attack, and then get the deflection off in the first place. It's not that this game requires lightning fast inputs or anything. It's not even really that it requires fast thinking. More than anything, it just requires that you get a feel for the game. You've heard a lot of people say that it's a rhythm game, and that's very true. Once you learn these enemy attacks, You learn what rhythm to fight them in, what rhythm to deflect with, what rhythm to attack and deflect in. It becomes a sort of a dance. And dancing is based around music, right? So let's talk about music for a second. Now, if I were in a black metal band and someone said, I really want to like this black metal band, but there's just too much screaming. I can't get into this. It's not accessible because he screams too much. Black metal needs an easy mode. Please stop screaming in black metal. It's not up to you to tell the artist how to make something. It's up to you to tell the artist whether or not you like it or not. Whether you think you can get past the screaming vocals, or whether maybe you like or don't like the screaming vocals. Well, Saint, maybe video games aren't art, and maybe difficulty isn't comparable to screaming in black metal. Well, okay, fine then. Let's say that video games are not art. Then they are a product. And if they are a product, then the creator of the product gets to decide how they allocate their resources, which are time and money. If they don't want to spend time and money going in and making a mode that's easier for their game, then we don't get to tell them to do that, because it's their time, it's their money, and it's their vision. It's their product. So either way, difficulty is one of the instruments that From Software uses in their games. Now, it's easy to get caught up in the idea that they are using difficulty to weed out weak players, or whatever stupid shit you've heard from the Get Good community, which I don't buy into at all. And no one over the age of 16, I'm out, I'm an American, no one over the age of 21 really believes. No one really feels like a god tier gamer because they beat this game. Because we understand that it doesn't take any like superb skill level or you know, godly dexterity to manipulate the controller to pull this off. It really is just about understanding the game mechanics on a level that allows most of us, I think, to appreciate what was intended in the design. And that's why these From Software games are so beloved, is because we have to really get to know them, and the game really feels like it's testing us. So it really does feel like a conversation or a dance between From Software and their design philosophy and the player. Can you learn the steps? That's what From Software asks. Now, part of this design philosophy is inherent from the moment you play the game. From the very first boss that most of the players will encounter is Grandma Butterfly. And this is a core mechanic, or not really a mechanic, but it's a core design philosophy that goes all the way back to the early Souls games. And it's, if you can beat our first boss, then you can beat our whole game. And like Father Gascoigne is just a phenomenal example of how From Software uses that. Let's think about Grandma Butterfly for just a minute. When you come across this boss, what do you have? You've got 1, maybe 2 healing gourds. You have 0 or maybe 1 prayer bead. You are at your weakest. This is the point in the game where you have nothing going for you, and you have to fight a boss who demands that you attack, deflect, dodge, jump, and use an item. 5 things. 5 things. If you can do those 5 things, then you can beat our game. That is a core concept of how From Software utilizes their difficulty. It's not that they're using difficulty as some sort of like, oh, this is bullshit, more often than not. Don't get me wrong, there are definitely occasions where From Software knows what they're doing and they throw in a really difficult segment or something just to sort of get a laugh. And once you figure out how to do it, once you figure out how to beat it, overcome that, what in the hell were they thinking? Like, once you get that, you're in on the joke with them, which is another part of the reason that these games are so beloved. Sekiro sold 3 million copies in its first 10 days, which is more than any other From Software game has sold in that short period of time. But how long have you known about From Software games? You've known about them forever. Back before they were selling this well, they were still a wildly popular game series. That's because they were spread through word of mouth. this fan base is super vehement, and they want everyone to know about these games. Everybody wants to talk about them, and this is why you're seeing this conversation pop up yet again. We are 10 years into the Miyazaki era of From Software, and people are still asking for an easy mode. Gaming journalists, they're still asking for an easy mode. Why are they doing that? Why are people still asking 10 years in? They're asking because they know you will click their article. They want to sell that ad space, and they know that From Software fans are rabid, and they know that they're passionate. Because, like I said, even before these games were selling as well as they sell now, they were still word of mouth. Everybody knew about these games. Maybe not everybody played them, but everybody knew about them. They're an easy target. They're an easy target. And this is what really gets me. They're an easy target for the accessibility debate. A lot of people are like, well, the get good culture doesn't want disabled people to be able to play their game. Why would it affect you? It wouldn't at all. And this irks me a little bit. Sekiro is From Software's most accessible game to date. They've included the ability for you to remap the buttons on your controller to wherever you see fit. So if there are people who have nerve damage and maybe like one side of their body doesn't work as well as the other, or if you've got really bad arthritis in one hand or something. I'm not saying this fixes everything, but it's a step forward. It's a huge step forward in the accessibility of From Software's games. But is anyone writing articles on that? No, of course they're not, because it doesn't fit the narrative. The narrative being that From Software hates disabled people, and everyone who plays From Software games parks in handicapped parking spaces even when they don't need them. And it's just not the case. It's just not true. This is their most accessible game to date. In a way, it's kind of the easiest game that they have. It starts in easy mode. What more do you want? If you want hard mode, go ring that demon bell, and your enemies get tougher. You get better loot. If you want hard mode, give Kuro his charm back. And now, every deflection you do has to be perfect. If it's not, you're going to take damage. If you block, you're going to take damage. That makes the game harder. Don't use your battle memories and have really low attack rating. That is going to make the game harder. Don't use your prayer beads and keep your vitality and your posture really low. That's going to make the game harder. That's how they make the game more difficult. But you want easy mode? Turn the game on. You got it. It's right there. This game is not that hard. It's not that hard. And that's one of the things that kind of hurts about these From Software games, is I don't want people to give up on them just because they read somewhere, yeah, this game's supposed to be impossible. It's not impossible, you've just hit a wall. You need to unlearn some bad habit you have, or you've missed out on something fundamentally important into continuing the game. So if you've hit a wall, you don't have to give up because PC Gamer told you to. You can just get good. Sekiro.